Hello guys, welcome once again to another tutorial session on Python for bioinformatics hacks. So for this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to calculate the GC contents of sequences in a multi-fasta file. And we are going to use the Python libraries biopython and pandas to run this task. So these are the installation instructions so that you'll be able to quickly install these two libraries. So now let's quickly explore the data. This is the data set I'm going to use. Okay, so I will leave a link in the description box so that you can go and download this data to follow this tutorial. So this is how the data set is. We have 3 sequences in them. And so the reason why we want to use Python and BioPython is that if you have several sequences, which could even be in the hundreds or thousands, then calculating them manually will be an issue. And so there's a need to automate the task by writing a script that will quickly run through each of these sequences and do the calculation. And you are going to realize how convenient this is. So let's hop right into it. So the first thing we have to do is to call your libraries, assuming that you have installed all of them correctly. So we start with the BioPython. So from bio import SeqIO. Then from the biopython, we call another function to calculate the GC, and that's from Bio.SeqUtils import GC. And then we now call on pandas as well. So we say import pandas, and this is how it goes. So we import them. The next is to set the file path. We need to show Python where it can locate the file we are going to use. And so mine is on the desktop and I know the path, and so I'll just quickly put them here. So I say file path equals to you need to make sure you have everything spelled correctly so that you don't encounter any error. So let's confirm from here. Yes, so now it's in order. So after we are done with the file path, we are now ready to read the FASTA file. Okay, now because it's a multi-fasta file, we use the parse function. I've done separate videos on how to access single FASTA and then multi-fasta files, so I'll leave them also in the link in the description box below. So let's check. So now we read it. So we say seek objects is equals to SeqIO.parse, indicate the file path, specify the format, which is FASTA. So now we've set the seek objects. So once we are done with this, note that using this operation, this variable here will be used as a temporal storage for the sequences here. So we now need to permanently make those information available to Python. And so we extract the sequence. So let's quickly extract the sequences here. So let's just say sequences. Okay. So we now say for seek in seek objects. So this is how we do it. This time I'm going to use a list comprehension. Okay, so let's use that to make it simple for us. List comprehensions are relatively faster. So let's use that to assign the sequence. So we say sequence it is equals to, we set our list and we say seek for seek in seek objects. So we've now set the list comprehension. So we can actually check if everything has been successful. So you can just query how many sequences are in this particular list. So you can say print length. Let me just make it simpler for beginners. So let's just say number of sequences will be equals to len sequences. Okay, so now you can print the number of sequences. Notice there are no spaces in the variable, so take note of that. So now we have 3 sequences in it. So it confirms we have successfully loaded the multi-fasta file and extracted the sequences. So now let's hop right onto it. Each sequence has a number of information such as the sequence ID, name, description, sequence. And for this tutorial, our main objective is to calculate the GC content. So that's what we will do and leave the other information there. So in our first instance, we are going to calculate the GC and also get the sequence ID and then print them on the screen. So let's hop right into it. And to do that, we are going to use the for loop to do that. So we say for seek in sequences. Let's get a seek ID. So we say seek ID is equals to what? Seq.id. Now let's get a sequence. So we say sequence is equals to seq.seq. We now have the sequence. Now it's time to compute the GC content. So we say GC content is equals to GC, and then we'll give it the sequence. Okay. Now with the GC content, you have more than 2 decimal places. So we want to round it to 2 decimal places. So we say GC content is equals to round. Then we specify the GC content and then 2, indicating we want to round it to 2 decimal places. So now we print it. So we say print seek ID and then with GC content, that both will be printed on the same line. So let's go. So notice how quickly this was done for us. So if you have several sequences, then using just this few lines of code, you can quickly scan through and then compute the GC content. Isn't that simple? Of course it is. Now, there are times where we want to save our results to a file, okay, and then later read it and then maybe do analysis on that as well. And so pandas makes it very simple and easy to organize your data whilst you are doing the analysis and also be able to save the results. And so for this tutorial, we are first going to use pandas to create a data frame, and then we will now save the data frame to a file and then view that as well. So let's do that. So in order to create the data frame, we will need to make sure we have the sequence IDs and then the GC contents all set up for us. So we'll first create an empty list for both. So we say sequence ID, seek IDs equals to this empty list, and then GC content equals to this. Okay, so we now have this empty list. Then we will now come and then use these loops again here. But this time, instead of printing, we'll now save the results to this list. So we'll say for seek in sequences, seek ID is equals to seq.id, sequence seq.seq. Then we compute the GC content just as we did previously. Then we round it. So instead of printing, we will now place them in this list. So we say SeqIDs dot append SeqID, then GC contents dot append GC contents. Now, because we are performing this operation, which is not a print statement, we will not be able to see what is going on. So it's important that you have some statement to at least show you what processes are being done. So we can just say print GC content has been computed, so that at least we know things has been successful. So we now run it. So notice we have three statements here. This is because we have three sequences that we are working on. So that is how it's done. So we can quickly check the SeqIDs. Just check the first elements, or let's just print them since they are few. So it says SeqIDs. So we have all of them there. Let's just print the GC contents. We also have all of them there. Please note that because we did this in a particular order, SeqID01, the corresponding GC content will also be the first element in the GC contents list. So you take note of that. So second for this, third for this. So we have that information there. Of course, you can also query them individually. So let's just say we wanted to find the SeqIDs and the GC content for the first element. You can just say SeqID 0, and then the GC contents to GC contents 0. So we have them there. There are other advanced ways and better ways of doing the queries, but that will be for another video session. So at least we've confirmed that we have the sequence IDs and their corresponding GC contents calculated. So we now proceed to create the pandas data frame. So data frame is more like a table where you have rows and columns, but there are additional features to make it more interactive and easy to handle and then process data. So we start. We begin by creating an empty data frame. So we say data frame equals to pd dot data frame. Then we now add the columns. So the first column will be the sequence ID. So we say data frame okay, that's the column name, and we assign the value. The value is SeqIDs. That's the list. We create another column again for the GC contents. And then we give it the GC content list. So now we are set. We can just print some of them. So let's just query the shape, telling you how many rows and columns. So you can say data print data frame dot shape. Okay, so that's 3, 2, indicating the rows. So the rows will be the number of isolates or samples or organisms, and the columns indicates your information, sequence ID, and GC content. Because we just have a few of them, we can just print the entire data frame. Okay, to see how the data frame is. So we have the sequence ID and the corresponding GC content. So let's go. After we have created the data frame, you can now save it to a file that we can access outside Python. So to save the file, you first need to make sure you have an output file set. So that file will be created and the information will be saved in. So let's quickly give an output file we want. So let's just say output file. I also want to save it in the desktop, in the location where I have my multi-fasta file. So I'll say classroom, and then I'll add my JC contents. .csv. We are going to save it as a CSV file format. This file format can be read by any spreadsheet software. So after we've set the output file, it's now time to save the pandas data frame. So we say data frame dot to CSV, and then we indicate the output file name which we have assigned here. Then we indicate whether we want the index to be saved or not. This side the index is 012. We want to exclude this in the output file, so we say index equals false. Of course, there are instances where you want to make it true, but that will be for another video tutorial, so don't worry about the other options. So we now save it. Okay, so now we have saved it. So let's just go to the desktop and look at how it has been done for us. Okay, so realize we have saved it here as well. So let's open it. Okay, so you see that it has been opened, it has been saved nicely for us, and we have them here. So we have the sequence ID and the GC content as well. So from here, you could also do some analysis by plotting your graphs and doing, or maybe sending reports or doing whatever you want to use the information for. So that's how it's done. Okay, so this makes it interesting for us biologists since we have all these tools available for us to use to process our bioinformatics data. So the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can also automate this GC content calculation if you have several or multiple single sequence FASTA files. By me, each of the FASTA files we are going to use will have just one sequence. Okay, so it's also you need to iterate and then automate the process to do that. And that will be for the next video I'll make. So stay tuned. So thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next session. As I've said, goodbye and then happy coding.